As an educator, I'm really inspired by the stories of my students and all of their dreams and aspirations that they're hoping to achieve. I'm motivated by helping them achieve those dreams, seeing them succeed, and seeing all the different directions that the industry can go in thanks to their creativity and their new ideas that they're bringing. The students have done so many impressive things. It's really difficult to pick just one most impressive thing that a student has done. Recently, a student, she has since graduated. Her name is Kai Wilson. She helped me with a project for WLRN Radio called Bright Lit Place, and she was my assistant in coding the website and the data visualizations for the Bright Lit Place podcast, which was then nationally distributed through NPR. So I'm very proud of her for that recent project. I have one piece of advice for women who want to lead in communication or in any industry, and that is to recognize your own worth and not let the perceptions of others dictate how much money you should be making or what title you should have in comparison to your peers who might have a similar level of experience. So the most important thing is to not be afraid to ask for your worth and actually to ask for more than what you think you're worth. This is like predicting the future, right? What skills and knowledge will be needed in the future? Probably a few years ago, we wouldn't have known to predict what we're seeing now. We wouldn't necessarily have pointed out the trends that are coming into the world of communications and media now. We've been surprised by a lot of new technologies that have come out. So I think the most important skill and the most important knowledge to cultivate is adaptability. No matter what is going to come our way in the future or what new technologies are going to be implemented, making sure that we have the ability to use new tools without fear and the ability to respond to things that are changing, the ability to adapt to change is the most important. What students should be doing now to prepare for that unknown future is building up the skill of adaptability and building up the skill of not having a fear response to things that are unknown or unfamiliar. I always tell my students that if they take one thing out of the coding class that I teach, it should be that you can actually code. Even if you don't use the programming languages that you learned in my class again, just knowing that you have the ability to learn a skill that felt inaccessible to you before is going to help you troubleshoot and use new softwares, new tech that you might have felt intimidated by before. Whether that's using technology like Adobe Premiere Pro for video editing or using data visualization software like Data Wrapper, just being able to try new things is what students should be doing now. Whichever direction you happen to be interested in as a student, try new things and new tools in that direction. There are lots of new jobs that have titles we didn't see before in communications, media, and journalism. Some of these jobs aren't necessarily new. They have been around, but they have new titles. So in my specialization, which is in the world of data visualization and data journalism, we always had something called computer-assisted reporting, or CAR. As soon as computers became widespread in their usage, we have had CAR, or computer-assisted reporting, from the beginning. But now we have new titles related to that area of expertise, like news app developer, data journalist, information designer, and so many more titles. They all relate to using data and technology to tell a story. I think every field needs to grapple with the need to have more variety among the people who are making decisions, because if you don't have those different perspectives in the collaboration circle or in the room of people who are making decisions, You're going to miss really important factors that you might not be aware of because of your own personal history or background. You're going to miss out on capturing the attention of audiences that might be different from your own background. And you're going to miss out on opportunities to collaborate with people that you wouldn't have thought of or that you might not be familiar with in your own experience. And that could be applicable to different upbringings, but it could also be applicable to different professional viewpoints. Having someone who's more focused on data and technology working side by side with someone who's really good at identifying the heart of the story and talking to people. That variety of expertise, variety of backgrounds, and diversity of just lived experiences is going to make better storytelling and better journalism come to life. The qualities that are important for a leader, I think, will change based on the organization and the person who's trying to become a leader. This is a very vague answer, but I think we have a lot of emphasis being placed now on being strong-willed, being confident, being outspoken. Some people might not feel like they are naturally strong-willed, confident, and outspoken, but they can still be a leader. Because the soft skills that we often undervalue, like being able to be empathetic, listening to the people that you are managing or that you are working with as a leader, and being able to consolidate multiple different angles into one objective without excluding anyone. Those are soft skills that are just as important for a leader and that might be more present in someone who considers themselves to be an introvert, someone who considers themselves to be a support person or an empathetic person. So an outspoken, confident person can make a great leader, but an introverted, sensitive person can also make a great leader. It's just about giving that person the opportunity and not undervaluing the things that that particular leader might bring to the table. This is kind of a vague answer. Like any skill can be applicable to leadership, but as long as you do your work really well and you help other people follow along behind you, then you can be a good leader. Equal pay for equal work is really important in journalism, where now we actually have more and more women studying in the field of journalism and media. So our majors in the School of Journalism and Media, which in the past might have had a majority of male students, have now had a lot more women join in the entry level of the field. So it's important to make sure that from the leadership and mentorship level, we are telling our students and we are telling new entry-level professionals that are coming into the field to expect the best and to expect a good level of pay for their work. Sometimes we don't know what our peers are making, but a really good rule of thumb is to ask for much more than you think you actually should be making, and then you can negotiate and see what is actually possible in the role. But a lot of women will accept the first offer without negotiating a salary, whereas men are much more likely to aim higher or to negotiate. So it's important for us as professional women to expect more and to be open to that negotiation process. My professional career has been really varied. So I've worked in roles that all have different titles. I've had the title of data analyst. I've had the title of web applications engineer. I've had the title now of professor of practice. But the challenges that each of those roles included were a bit similar. Probably the biggest challenge I faced was working on a particular technology project for many months, and then that project being canceled or the leadership decided not to move forward with that particular tool that my team was building. So it's kind of the situation that you often hear about of sometimes you have to kill your darlings, right? Sometimes you have to let go of a project that you poured a lot of energy into, and that's just the reality. But the flip side of that the positive side of that is that when you're working so hard towards something, it's a good reality check to remember. Sometimes priorities will change. Sometimes that project might have to be let go. And sometimes you'll have to refocus on something else. So when you're so stressed to make something a reality, it's good to remember that sometimes it's out of your control. It's okay if something is not going to be 100% perfect, 100% on time, because sometimes it gets canceled anyway. I'm actually really worried about the impacts that artificial intelligence is having now in the field of journalism and communication, because there's not very much knowledge. We have a lot of power with free and open source. Well, some of them are open source. We have a lot of power in the artificial intelligence tools that are becoming available in the market, whether that's artificial intelligence in video editing and image editing, or whether that's artificial intelligence in text generation or image generation. While we have this great power, we don't have the level of education to go along with it. So people might not be aware of the pitfalls. They might not be aware of the misinformation that's embedded or the bias that's embedded in these tools. So I'm a bit worried about how we're experiencing this right now, but I can't predict how that's going to move forward. I hope that we're going to have more education, more policy, and more guidance so that we can use that technology in a positive way. I was reading a really interesting essay, actually assigned it in one of my classes, about how we don't see people walking around with virtual reality or augmented reality headsets in our everyday life, right? We might see people using these headsets for gaming for some hours, but we're not seeing the widespread usage as predictions were a few years ago that, oh, we are going to see these things every day at work. We're going to see people in virtual meetings on a day-to-day basis. It's going to infiltrate our lives, just like a lot of other technologies have. I actually think that we're going to be moving towards a bit of the side of experiences that can be accessible in our everyday life, things that are going to help technology be less separate from reality and more integrated. Things like headsets making fewer people feel nauseous, or things like being able to still use our regular devices and having cross-compatibility, not having virtual reality and augmented reality be limited to just the platform of the company's headset that you bought. But maybe if your friend has a different headset and you have one, you can still communicate with each other like you can if you're using two different laptops or two different phones. So I hope that in the future we will go more towards the direction of having different platforms and devices be compatible with each other, have them become more accessible to all different kinds of people, and having an emphasis on user experience where we have a lot of real world feedback and we're not shut away or separate from the real life interaction that humans still very much crave. I think the Internet of Things has already transformed communication. I mean, we have so many smart devices. We have so many things that are connected to the internet that weren't connected to the internet before. We have, issues of privacy and surveillance that come into that. And we have a lot of discussion of when companies have the right to share the data that they are collecting through these smart devices and through the Internet of Things. Just by having this discussion about privacy and about what is and isn't accessible on the internet, a lot of our communication has transformed already. Things that people didn't used to think about necessarily are now becoming more and more important. And you've probably noticed that a lot of companies and devices have started to emphasize privacy. Hopefully, we're going to continue to see that trend moving forward, but it's uncertain. I'm not really sure what that's going to bring in the future. I really like this question about a student that wants to be tech savvy and wants to lead, because I hope that that is in the future of many of my students. I have the advice that, first of all, if you have this aspiration, don't be afraid to run for it. Don't be afraid to pursue this aspiration. If you have an interest in technology and leadership, as a communications student, as a journalism student, you can pursue that interest. You don't have to be an engineer or a 100% confident coder. You just have to have an open mind, a willingness to try new things, and adaptability. Like I said before, you have to try the technology, teach yourself sometimes through YouTube tutorials, through searching on the internet for resources, trial and error with these technologies that you're using, and then you can start to lead and show others how to use these tools to make more effective and more interactive communication. Having a mentor is important. First, because a mentor will put things in perspective for you. When things feel impossible or hard to achieve, a mentor can tell you about the time it felt impossible or hard to achieve for them and how they overcame that situation and how you can overcome that situation too. I remember speaking to a student who said, I've been applying to jobs for 3 months and I still haven't gotten a job, and they were distraught. And I said, that's perfectly normal. And they were surprised. They said, really? Yeah, so just having that perspective of someone who can tell you, guess what? I went through that too. It's perfectly normal. You're going to be okay, and I believe in you. Having that person to tell you, someone you trust because you look up to them, that's so important in any field. For a student who wants to pursue data journalism or who wants to pursue a field where they use technology to succeed in journalism, having a mentor can help you keep your finger on the pulse of which technology is important to learn, which programming languages you might want to dabble in, and which tools are being used more and less frequently in the profession that you're trying to achieve. So if you can speak with someone who's using those tools and learning new tools every day, then you can see, all right, if I want to work in a newsroom and I want to create interactive visualizations, I should probably learn a little bit of JavaScript because my mentor uses that tool almost every day and it's related to all the different tools that are coming out. So a lot of JavaScript frameworks and libraries come out, for example, in the world of journalism, and it's hard to know which one to use. They're all perfectly fine to use. But if you have a mentor who uses a particular technology successfully, then you can ask that mentor questions, you can get support, you can learn new things, and you can go along their same path to use that technology. It's not that it's better than any other technology, it's just that you have that support system and you can get feedback on your own work and you can get feedback on your use of that particular tool while you're learning. So it's important to have a mentor so that you can feel encouraged and supported, and it's important so that you can keep on a path that you feel will lead you to the same position that you're in. I think a lot of my students first don't even know that that is an option. A lot of students don't realize that there's a career called data journalism or that there is a career called data visualization designer. They simply are not aware. And then when they find out, they get excited about it and they'd like to try. If there is a student out there who feels afraid to try and pursue this career, I would first of all say there's nothing to fear. It's a career that is full of people who are very passionate, very welcoming. And if you happen to look for tutorials, Slack channel groups, professional organizations, and meetups, you will find there's a lot of them. They are free. There's a particular group based here in Miami that's for women who are learning the R programming language, and it's a very popular community for people to just get together and talk about this one tool and this one programming language, and everyone is so excited to try and teach the newcomers. So if you go into this field, you'll have a lot of support, a lot of really passionate people who will want to talk to you and help you, and some cool communities to join. There's really nothing to be afraid of.